Um,
Welcome back. I have with me on Skype Dr. Brian Hare, the forgive me, but genius behind COGNITION. I'm very inspired by his project that he's working on, and so we're going to have a brief little chat about some of his work and his ideas and some of the new developments that are happening and that are available for everybody to take part in. Hey, Brian.
Hi, everybody.
So one of the things that always strikes me is the concept of intelligence. I hear all the time, this breed's smarter than that breed, and I believe there's been all sorts of lists that have come out that border collies are smarter than bulldogs or whatnot, and this sort of kind of like a linear spectrum of IQ, but that's kind of bogus.
Well, before I answer your question, I just want to say thank you for helping me be two places at once. But I would love to have been there with y'all. I have two little kids that make it harder for me to travel right now, and I hope I get to join you in the future as this continues to be successful. And I hear great things, that people are having a good time and learning a lot of stuff. So thank you to you, Prescott, for putting this together and having these two communities be able to interact in a really important way. So to your question about intelligence, it's a tricky question. And if you ask me as an academic, people can rattle on for a really long time. But the way that I like to think about it is that it's exactly as you say. There's not just a continuum where there's sponges at the bottom and humans at the top, and you could give a single number to each species about its intelligence. Instead, I think that what we've learned from studying animal cognition is there's lots of different types of intelligence. Learning, or the ability to learn, is one type of intelligence. There are different mechanisms that allow you to learn. But there are other things that are different types of intelligence. Your ability to communicate, how you're empathic with others, your ability to remember things. These are all different types of intelligence. And so they don't always correlate with each other. And so you can be really strong in one area, and maybe you don't rely on the other cognitive ability as much as another individual or another species. So the way that I think about intelligence is more like you think about a toolbox. People ask me all the time, is a chimpanzee smarter than a dolphin, or is a dog smarter than a cat, et cetera? And my answer is always really frustrating, but it's what I think is true. I think it's like asking a question of, is a hammer a better tool than a saw? Well, it depends on what the tools are designed for. If you're designed to cut things apart, then it's going to be a saw. If you're designed to hammer things into other objects, you probably want to have the design of a hammer. So that's how we think about animals, is what are they designed to solve? What are the problems they're designed to solve? And why are they designed that way? And once we know that's how they should be designed, or we think they might be designed, we can think about their cognition.
Yeah, I think this idea of problem solving is, the toolkit of problem solving is fascinating, because I've written about this idea before, but essentially when we're talking about training dogs, or better perhaps teaching dogs, as some of the presenters have suggested, we're asking them to solve various puzzles, solve various problems. They're presented with a situation, and we're looking for perhaps X instead of Y. And understanding maybe a little bit better about how they go through this process of thinking about this environmental puzzle, it seems to me the most obvious and most important element in figuring out how to take training and teaching with our dogs further.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of taking a cognitive approach, is recognizing there are different strategies, that those strategies can be relied on more by one species than another, or alternatively, it can be different individuals. So just like, I don't think anybody would argue that, different people have different strengths in terms of how they solve problems. I'm not, the greatest mathematician, for instance. And then, other people might be better at communicating. So there are different skills that people have, different strengths and weaknesses, different strategies, and it's the same for dogs. And so what we've tried to create here at Cognition is the opportunity for people to actually assess what are the strategies that individual dogs rely on by giving a set of games that are based on the published literature in sort of 5 areas that we thought were sort of core competencies that would be important for being a teachable dog, and what are the different skills that a dog relies on. I mean, you can, just to make it concrete here, if a dog doesn't sit, you're trying to train a dog to sit. Well, there could be lots of different reasons the dog doesn't sit. It could be that the dog can't remember the command. It could be that the dog actually doesn't understand the visual gestures you're giving. It could be that the dog realizes that when you can't see them, it doesn't have to listen to you because it knows that you can't see what it's doing. So there are different reasons, and so that's one of the things that Cognition allows you to do is understand what's your dog's profile, how's it tuned to solve problems relative to other dogs, and then use that information to sort of have a more individualized training approach.
Yeah, I have to say, in the lead up to SPARCS, and I've had wonderful correspondence with wonderful, wonderful people. I have to say, I picked up a tremendous amount of skepticism in general as I look at things from the wonderful Dr. Clive Wynne. And when I first approached Cognition, I was extremely skeptical. But then I did it, and I did it more than once. And I have to say, I have read so much cognition work. Your lab, reading Adam's work, reading Alexandra's work, Monique's work, reading all this cognition stuff and all of the various very interesting debates that are going on about whether this means that or this means that. I didn't gain an appreciation for how sophisticated these questions really are until I actually tried Cognition. And I actually took that cup and I pointed at it. And I looked at my dog expecting one thing and then being like, okay, that was interesting. See if that happens again. And test after test. It was fascinating to me. And then, my business partner, we did her dog Lucky, and he was a good old stargazer. And this is a dog that is trained, so well. A lot of service dog training, unbelievably relevant to her cues and the commands. Don't particularly like that word, but when she asks Lucky to do something, Lucky does it. He's a good boy. But you point at a cup, and Lucky says, "No, I'm going this one," which is just fascinating to me.
Right. So first of all, just to echo what you said or riff off what your experience is that, I tested my own dog, and I'm supposed to be Mr. Fancy Pants expert. I helped design Cognition, obviously, along with a lot of other people who worked really hard on it. And surely I could predict what my dog's going to do. And I sat down and I'd say, okay, he's not going to have very much empathy, relative to other dogs. And he'll be an amazing communicator because I feel like he's really good at you reading my gestures, etc. And on both of those, it was completely opposite. He actually was more reliant on, empathy than by far than what I had predicted. And he was kind of average for communication. That's the beauty, is that it helps you learn something. Even me, who, I do this for a living, I couldn't predict what any individual dog will do on these tests. And so the idea is to help people learn more about their dogs and what makes them tick. How are they tuned? What makes them the way that they are? Instead of just listening to me, you can actually participate now. And for those who are cynical, I completely understand. I'm a scientist. That's very healthy. There's no better way to form an opinion than go try something yourself and look at the data. The data is the data. For me, I think that we have some really nice data to suggest that we're getting very quality data back from people, and I think people are having a really great experience and learning really interesting things. Number one, just about cognition and the science, and by actually participating and doing some of the games we play in more conventional laboratory settings, they're learning about what it is to do these games. And then obviously you're contributing to this larger endeavor to do citizen science and learn about all dogs by learning about your own dog. And you know, at the very least, what we're going to end up being able to do at Cognition is propose some really exciting hypotheses that we can then chase in more conventional lab settings. I'll just give you one of the discoveries we made that I would never have predicted. Is we found a difference between purebred and mixed breed dogs in our sample. We have hundreds of dogs that have been tested already. In 3 months, we've tested more dogs than I could test at Duke in 3 years.
Wow.
And I'm not exaggerating. That's not hyperbole. That's really true. And so when we look at this data collected by citizen scientists, what you see is that the purebred dogs are actually more reliant on pointing gestures than mixed breed dogs. But mixed breed dogs, which I would never have predicted, had no way to predict, they're much more reliant on their memory than purebred dogs. There are no other real big differences in the sample. Those are the two big differences that stand out. Now, I would never have been able to predict that would have been the pattern, that those would be the differences and the other things wouldn't be different. And I wouldn't be able to look at that because in the conventional laboratory setting, I just don't have the sample size to do it. So then what that means is with this type of data, people like Monique or Clive or Ray or Adam, they can all follow up and see if these things actually pan out and replicate.
Yeah, I think something that's come up started to come up a little bit more. Adam discussed it a bit. And I think it's going to be a theme a bit today. Is just one of the things about research is that there's a lot of times assumptions that it's pigeonholing our dogs for us in ways that don't reflect our dog. I mean, we know our dogs the best, right? So why do I care about what somebody says in a lab under certain conditions with certain parameters, how they did X, Y, or Z? But what I think, Jim Russell was talking with me, and one of the most important potentials in furthering this research is getting more people involved with their dogs in this research, getting that sample size up, getting dog trainers and dog owners in the public. That the citizen science mission that you're on is fantastic. I just can't see any greater opportunity than working with people who not only in enormous levels, but who know and work with their dogs so much to get their feedback and their results from their dog on a world level. I am blown away by the possibility of the questions that might be raised by your work.
Right, and so, and just another shout out to Alexandra Horowitz. She also has a citizen science project going. It's a more observational program, but everybody go check that out too. It's a very neat idea. And so we're not alone in having a citizen science approach. And I think that, if you look at what the Audubon Society, for instance, has been able to do through citizen science, they have over 100,000 people every year do bird counts all over the country. And because they've done this for 100 years, actually over 100 years, they've been able to show the effects of climate change on the migration patterns and population sizes of a variety of birds in the United States. There's no way that data could have been collected any other way, but just people in their backyard saying, oh, that's a robin, that's a cardinal, and reporting that back to the Audubon Society. So it's the same thing. All the people who are dog lovers, who are excited that, first of all, you want to know about your own dog, but you'd like to contribute to our ability to learn about all dogs, That's what Cognition's all about, is giving us a new powerful tool to try to at least generate hypotheses and I think test the hypotheses that we're all interested in. The federal government is never going to give any of us, any of the researchers in the room, a grant to look at, do Great Danes learn differently than Chihuahuas?
Right.
There will be no federal grant from the National Institute of Health.
But they'll spend $1 billion on which one sniffs a bomb better.
That they will do. So the only way to do this is through a citizen science approach. If we're really interested in answering questions through an empirical approach, and if we want data to be our authority above all else, then I think that citizen science can be a very powerful way to go. And I want to echo what I heard the end of Adam's talk, and I completely agree with what he said. Is we're so lucky as dog researchers to have experts like yourself, Prescott, in the room that's full there of people who interact with dogs and observe so many things. It's not always the case that people who try to do sort of fun problem-solving games, i.e. laboratory approach to studying cognition, always translate everything perfectly from what actually happens in the real world into the lab. So that's the wonderful thing, is we have these amazing people who know so much that we can get feedback and have this interaction. And we've had a bunch of trainers sign up, and they're using Cognition in their training program now, and they've been pretty happy about it because they're able to tell clients a little bit more about their dog and why they might be having the problems they're having than they had before. Here's one interesting finding, though, I want to share. Is we've had a lot of people ask us, well, hey, my dog's trained so well, I don't really think I'm going to get an accurate assessment from Cognition. Here's the data. The data is we have well over 100 trainers have had the Cognition experience and tested their dog, and we've found out what the Cognition profiles are of those dogs. We've had hundreds of people who do not have dogs that are owned by a trainer, and may have, actually, many of them have very little training background. When you look at the distribution of the profiles, there's no difference. So the cognitive profiles of trained dogs owned by trainers is no different than the distribution of dogs owned by just people who have a pet dog. So this isn't to say that the trainer's dogs aren't incredibly well trained. It doesn't mean that. But what it means is, what it might suggest is that training a dog to be obedient, do nose work, do agility, to just be generally a good citizen, that may not irrevocably change the cognitive skills and the way that their mind has been tuned, and alter everything.
Yeah, we're talking on one hand the ability for a dog to respond to a signal, to do a certain behavior from us, which is, so we're talking about, really a different aspect of social behavior, versus something a little bit more extraneous.
Right.
Pointing through three-dimensional space to something a little bit less tangible. What happens when we start to change our gaze? These are really interesting questions of what happens even with the most trained dogs. I do a lot of these games in my own private work. I love doing cognition stuff. Typically, the whole back end of my training with dog owners is, let's get your dog to explore, the environments, and let's get them, making some choices. Let's see what they do. I think, I definitely encourage trainers to check it out because it's pretty neat. And I have to thank you for giving our audience free profiles to check it out on their own. And so those of you who are here, if you look in the materials we gave you, you should have a Cognition profile coupon code.
This is Prescott's Oprah moment.
Yes, no. But seriously, check it out. I think it's a really, really worthy project. I think it's going to spur a lot of questions. It's going to spur a lot of skepticism, and both are critical elements to continuing to answer these questions. Brian's going to come up with all sorts of hypotheses. I'm sure Clive is going to be at the front of the ship saying, well, I don't know about this. Let's look at it this light. And, we're going to keep exploring these questions. And that's essential for us to keep moving forward in understanding, how our dogs are viewing us and responding to us and going through the world. I just love it.
And of course, we're really excited to learn, have our cognitive approach be combined with, all the approaches that people use in a more applied context, and think about, what's the cognitive abilities that are required to, learn the different things that people are trying to teach their dogs. And also, why is it that all these applied approaches work so well? And are there any ways to help them work even better? So again, Prescott, thanks so much for the time to share a bit of time with everybody there. And obviously, we welcome questions, and I hope that y'all try out Dognition. Let us know what you think. And my guess is that you'll have a great time, and more importantly, your dog will have a great time.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for joining us. And I look forward to discussing more of these questions with you someday over a beer.
All right, y'all take care.